The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the mahogany dining table as I watched my fiancée Tessa drain her fourth glass of wine. Her parents' colonial mansion buzzed with the chatter of relatives celebrating our engagement, but something felt wrong. "Ethan, honey, could you help me with the dessert?" Mrs. Patterson called from the kitchen, her voice carrying that forced cheerfulness wealthy people use when they're pretending everything's perfect. I nodded, but my eyes stayed locked on Tessa. She was leaning against the marble fireplace, laughing too loud at something Derek Morrison was saying. Derek, her cousin's friend from college, all trust fund and zero substance. The kind of guy who'd never worked a day in his life but somehow always had money for designer clothes and expensive cars. Tessa's hand brushed Derek's arm as she threw her head back, her blonde hair catching the light. That laugh. I'd heard it 1,000 times before, but tonight it sounded different. Calculated. Performative. "Tess," I said, walking over to them. "Can we talk for a minute?" She turned, her blue eyes glassy from the wine. "We're in the middle of a conversation, Ethan." "It's important." Derek smirked, adjusting his Rolex. "Maybe later, buddy. We're discussing art. You know, culture." The condescension in his voice made my jaw clench, but I kept my cool. I'd learned long ago that losing your temper in front of rich people just proved their point about your class. "Tessa," I said again, my voice firm. She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Fine. 5 minutes." She followed me into the hallway, stumbling slightly. "This better be good. Derek was telling me about his gallery opening next month." "What's wrong with you tonight?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "You've been acting strange all evening." "Strange?" She laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "Maybe I'm just tired of pretending." "Pretending what?" She leaned against the wall, studying her manicured nails. "That this is what I want. That you're what I want." The words hit like a punch to the gut, but I forced myself to stay calm. "You're drunk. Let's talk about this tomorrow." "No, let's talk about it now." Her voice was getting louder. "You want to know what's wrong? You're boring, Ethan. Predictable. Every day is the same with you. Work, dinner, television, sleep. Rinse and repeat. I thought you liked our routine. You said you appreciated stability after your last relationship." "Stability?" She laughed again, and this time several family members turned to look. "God, even the way you talk is boring. I settled for you, okay? I thought I could make it work, but I can't." My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. "What are you saying, Tess?" She pushed off the wall, swaying slightly. The entire room had gone quiet now, everyone pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. "I'm saying I'll forget you in a week," she said, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. "I already found someone better." She pointed directly at Derek, who was standing by the fireplace with a satisfied grin on his face. Mrs. Patterson gasped. Mr. Patterson set down his brandy glass with a sharp clink. "Tessa, don't do this," her mother whispered. But Tessa was on a roll now, fueled by wine and whatever delusion of grandeur Derek had been feeding her. "He's more exciting than you'll ever be, Ethan. More sophisticated. More... everything." Derek stepped forward, his chest puffed out like a peacock. "Sorry, man. Sometimes these things just happen." The room was dead silent, except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. 30 pairs of eyes watched me, waiting to see how the blue-collar auto shop owner would handle being publicly humiliated by his socialite fiancé. I took a deep breath and reached for Tessa's left hand. She was still smirking, probably thinking I was going to beg or make a scene. Instead, I carefully removed the engagement ring, the $15,000 diamond I'd saved 2 years to afford, and slipped it into my pocket. "Finally getting it," she said with a cruel smile. I pulled out my phone and opened my email app, turning the screen so she could see it. "I removed your name from the apartment lease yesterday." Her smirk faltered. "What?" I scrolled to the next email. Car insurance canceled this morning. Your policy expires at midnight. Ethan, what are you? I pulled out a folder from my jacket pocket. Joint bank accounts closed. Your cards were deactivated at 5 p.m. today. The color was draining from her face now, but I wasn't finished. I showed her my phone again. Remember that Vegas trip you planned for next week? Canceled. I used my airline miles for the tickets, so no refund for you. Derek was backing away slowly, suddenly less interested in the conversation. Your student loans that I've been paying? Made the final payment yesterday? You're on your own now. I pulled out another document. The wedding venue? Full refund, since the contract was in my name only. Tessa's confidence was evaporating like morning mist. She reached for my arm. Wait, let's talk about this. I gently removed her hand. You'll forget me in a week, remember? I turned to address the room full of shocked relatives. I apologize for the scene, everyone. I'll see myself out. Mr. Patterson stood up. You don't need to apologize, son. You're not the one who should be ashamed. Mrs. Patterson nodded, her eyes filled with disappointment as she looked at her daughter. Tessa, how could you do this? But I was already walking toward the door. Tessa stumbled after me, panic replacing arrogance. Ethan, wait! I didn't mean it. I was just drunk. I stopped and turned back one final time. Yes, you did mean it, and that's okay. But you made your choice. I showed her my phone screen one last time. I changed my number an hour ago and blocked you on everything. Don't try to contact me. As I walked out the front door, I could hear the explosion behind me. Voices overlapping, accusations flying, Tessa's sobs echoing through the mansion. Derek had apparently slipped out the back door, avoiding the drama he'd helped create. I drove home in silence, feeling strangely calm. The ring sat in my cup holder, catching the streetlight as I turned into my apartment complex. $15,000 that would go back into my savings account. Money I could use to finally expand the shop. 1 week later, I was having coffee at Murphy's Diner when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, but curiosity got the better of me. Please call me. I made a terrible mistake. T. I deleted it and went back to reading the newspaper. The sports section was more interesting than anything Tessa had to say. My friend Jake slid into the booth across from me, grinning. Heard you caused quite a stir at the Patterson mansion last week. News travels fast. Faster when it involves someone getting their comeuppance in front of half the country club. Jake signaled the waitress for coffee. Word is, Tessa's having some financial difficulties. I shrugged. Not my problem anymore. Her car got repossessed yesterday. Turns out she couldn't make the payments without your help. Shocking. Jake laughed. Come on, man. You can at least admit you're enjoying this a little bit. I folded the newspaper and looked at him. I'm not enjoying anything. I'm just moving on with my life. That was mostly true. I wasn't actively enjoying Tessa's struggles, but I wasn't losing sleep over them either. She'd made her choice, and choices had consequences. It was a lesson her privileged upbringing had apparently never taught her. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I can't stop thinking about you. Derek was a mistake. Please give me another chance. I showed Jake the text. He whistled low. Damn. Looks like someone's having second thoughts. Too little, too late. Over the next few days, the texts kept coming. Different numbers. She was probably borrowing phones from friends or using apps to create new numbers, each message more desperate than the last. I never appreciated what we had. I was scared of commitment and acted like an idiot. Derek turned out to be exactly what you said he was, all flash and no substance. I'm losing everything. Please help me. I blocked each number as it appeared. I'd meant what I said at the engagement party. She'd forget me in a week, and I was going to forget her just as quickly. But apparently, forgetting wasn't going as planned for Tessa. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, mentioned seeing a blonde woman sitting in a car outside our building for hours, watching the entrance. My buddy Mike at the auto shop said someone matching Tessa's description had come by asking about me, claiming to be an old friend. I was at the grocery store when I finally saw her. She was standing by the produce section, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her designer clothes were wrinkled, her perfect hair unwashed. When she spotted me, she practically ran over. "Ethan, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I told you not to contact me. Please, just listen. I made a horrible mistake. I was drunk and stupid and honest," I said, pushing my cart past her. "Probably the most honest you'd been in months." She followed me down the cereal aisle. "That's not true. I love you. I want to marry you." I stopped and turned to face her. "No, Tessa. You loved my stability. You loved having someone to pay your bills and clean up your messes. You loved the idea of being taken care of. But you didn't love me. That's not... If you loved me, you wouldn't have been flirting with Derek all night. You wouldn't have humiliated me in front of your entire family. And you sure as hell wouldn't have told me you'd found someone better." Her eyes filled with tears. I was scared. Wedding planning was stressful, and Derek kept telling me I was too young to settle down, that I should explore my options. So you did. And now you're dealing with the consequences. I can't afford my rent, Ethan. My parents won't help because they're embarrassed by what I did. My credit cards are maxed out. I'm going to lose my apartment. I felt a flicker of sympathy, but I pushed it down. "You should have thought about that before you decided I wasn't good enough for you. Please, I'll do anything. I'll sign a prenup. There's nothing to sign. We're done." I walked away, leaving her standing in the cereal aisle. Part of me felt cruel, but a bigger part felt free. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't responsible for someone else's poor decisions. That weekend, I took the engagement ring to a jewelry store and sold it. $15,000 back in my account, plus the money I'd been spending on Tessa's expenses. I used part of it to buy new equipment for the shop and put the rest into savings. I also did something I hadn't done in years. I asked out the cute redhead who worked at the coffee shop near my apartment. Her name was Sabrina, and she said yes without playing games or making me jump through hoops. On our first date, she asked about my last relationship. "It ended badly," I said. "She told me she'd forget me in a week and had already found someone better." Sabrina nearly choked on her wine. "Seriously? At your engagement party? In front of her entire family? What did you do?" I smiled. I took the ring back and reminded her that actions have consequences. "Good for you. What happened to the guy she thought was better?" "Disappeared the moment things got complicated. Turns out trust fund babies don't like drama that might affect their reputation." Sabrina reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Her loss is my gain." 3 months later, I heard through the grapevine that Tessa had moved back in with her parents. Derek had ghosted her completely, and she'd been forced to take a job at a department store to pay off her credit card debt. Her prediction had been completely backward. She was the one who couldn't forget, while I'd moved on completely. 2 years later, I was married to Sabrina and happier than I'd ever been. We'd bought a small house in a decent neighborhood, and the auto shop was thriving. Sabrina appreciated the simple things: home-cooked dinners, weekend trips to the lake, quiet evenings watching movies together. She never made me feel like I wasn't enough. But life has a way of testing you when you least expect it. I was working late at the shop when my phone rang. Unknown number, which I usually ignored, but something made me answer. "Ethan? It's Vanessa Drake. I'm an attorney with Morrison, Wells and Associates." The name Morrison made my stomach clench. Derek Morrison's family firm. This couldn't be a coincidence. "What can I do for you, Ms. Drake?" "I'm calling about a legal matter involving your former fiancée, Tessa Patterson. She's filed a lawsuit claiming you damaged her credit and caused her financial distress through fraudulent means." I laughed. Actually laughed. Fraudulent means? I removed my name from accounts that I had every legal right to close. She claims you deliberately sabotaged her finances without warning, leaving her unable to meet her obligations. I warned her every time I told her to get a job and stop relying on me for everything. Is this a joke? I assure you, Mr. Mallory, this is quite serious. Ms. Patterson is seeking damages in the amount of $50,000 plus attorney fees. Let me guess. Derek Morrison is backing this lawsuit. There was a pause. I'm not at liberty to discuss our client's financial arrangements. Of course he is. Tell me, Ms. Drake, are you planning to represent someone who publicly humiliated me and then wants to sue me for not continuing to pay her bills? I'm simply doing my job, Mr. Mallory. You'll be receiving official papers within the week. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my office, staring at the phone. After 2 years of peace, Tessa was trying to drag me back into her drama. But this time, she'd made a crucial mistake. She'd involved lawyers, which meant everything would be documented and public. The papers arrived 3 days later, delivered by a process server who looked embarrassed to be there. The lawsuit was even more ridiculous than Vanessa Drake had made it sound. Tessa was claiming I'd engaged in financial manipulation and emotional abuse by closing accounts and canceling services without her consent. I called my own attorney, Bill Murphy, no relation to the diner owner, but just as straightforward. This is the dumbest lawsuit I've seen in 20 years, Bill said after reading the papers. She's essentially suing you for not continuing to support her after she broke up with you. Can she win? Not a chance. But it'll cost you money to defend, and that's probably the point. They're hoping you'll settle just to make it go away. I'm not settling anything. If she wants to do this the hard way, we'll do it the hard way. Bill grinned. I was hoping you'd say that. I've got some ideas that'll make this very interesting. Vanessa Drake was nothing like what I'd expected. When we met for depositions, she walked into the conference room like she owned it. Tall, blonde, wearing a power suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month. She was beautiful in that cold, calculated way that some successful women cultivated, like a perfect sculpture made of ice. "Mr. Mallory," she said, extending a manicured hand. "Thank you for coming." Didn't really have a choice. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I hope we can resolve this matter quickly and amicably. That depends on whether your client wants to drop this ridiculous lawsuit. My client has legitimate grievances. Your client is a spoiled brat who can't accept that her actions have consequences." Vanessa's smile never wavered, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Interest, maybe. Or calculation. The deposition was a joke. Bill had prepared me well, and every question Vanessa asked just highlighted how absurd the case was. Yes, I'd closed joint accounts that were legally mine to close. Yes, I'd canceled services that I was paying for. Yes, I'd done it all in one day, because I'd learned from previous experience to cut ties completely and quickly. Previous experience? Vanessa asked, leaning forward slightly. This wasn't the first time someone tried to use me for financial security while looking for someone better. I see. And how did those previous relationships end? Bill objected before I could answer, but Vanessa looked satisfied, like she'd learned something useful. After the deposition, she lingered while everyone else packed up. "Can I ask you something off the record?" she said. "Shoot. Why didn't you just give her some money to go away? $50,000 is probably less than this lawsuit will cost you in legal fees and lost time." I studied her face, looking for the angle. Because paying her would validate her behavior. She needs to learn that she can't treat people like ATM machines. Even if it costs you more to teach that lesson? Some lessons are worth the price. She nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something she'd suspected. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone bitter, angry, looking for revenge." She gathered her papers. "Instead, you seem principled. Disappointed? Intrigued. She left before I could figure out what that meant. The case dragged on for months, but it was going exactly as Bill had predicted. Every motion Vanessa filed was shot down. Every argument she made fell apart under scrutiny. Tessa's case was so weak that even sympathetic judges couldn't find merit in it. But something strange was happening. Vanessa kept scheduling unnecessary meetings, asking for additional depositions, requesting documents that had no bearing on the case. It was like she was prolonging things deliberately. "She's stalling," Bill said during one of our strategy sessions, "but I can't figure out why. This case is dead in the water and she knows it." I had my suspicions, but I kept them to myself. Vanessa Drake was playing a different game than the one happening in court. My suspicions were confirmed when she called me directly, bypassing Bill entirely. "I'd like to discuss a settlement," she said. "You can discuss that with my attorney. This is more of a personal conversation. Could we meet for coffee?" "I'm married, Ms. Drake." She laughed, a sound that was both warm and calculating. "This isn't about that, Mr. Mallory, though I appreciate your directness." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a neutral location, a busy cafe downtown where we couldn't be accused of any impropriety. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. She'd traded the power suit for jeans and a sweater, looking younger and more approachable. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "What's this really about?" "I'm going to withdraw from the case." That caught me off guard. "Why?" "Because it's frivolous, and I don't like being used." She leaned back in her chair. "Derek Morrison hired me because he thought a female attorney would have better luck making you look like the bad guy. He's been paying Tessa's legal fees and coaching her on what to say." I figured as much. "What you probably didn't figure is that he's been sleeping with both of them." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Both of them?" "Tessa and me. Though I only found out about the overlap recently." Her voice was calm, but I could see the anger underneath. "Apparently Derek has a type. Blonde, ambitious women who can be useful to him. I'm sorry, that's complicated. It gets worse. The $50,000 Tessa is suing for? That's exactly how much Derek owes his bookie. This whole lawsuit is just a way for him to pay off his gambling debts without using his own money." I sat back, processing this information. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I don't like being played, and because you were right about something." "What's that?" "Actions should have consequences." She pulled a folder from her purse. "I've documented everything. Derek's gambling debts, his relationship with Tessa, his instructions to me about how to handle the case. If you want to file a countersuit for malicious prosecution, you've got everything you need." "What about attorney-client privilege?" "Derek isn't my client. Tessa is, and she's been lying to me from the beginning, which voids our agreement." Vanessa stood up. "I'll be filing a motion to withdraw tomorrow. Your attorney will receive all relevant documents by the end of the week." "Why are you really doing this?" She paused at the edge of the table. "Because I've spent my whole career representing people like Derek and Tessa. People who think money and connections make them untouchable. It's refreshing to meet someone who actually fights back." She left me sitting there with a folder full of ammunition and a growing respect for a woman I'd initially dismissed as just another shark in a suit. Bill was practically giddy when he saw Vanessa's files. "This is better than Christmas morning," he said, spreading documents across his desk. "We've got them dead to rights on malicious prosecution, conspiracy, fraud. Take your pick." "What kind of damages are we talking about?" "Conservative estimate, $200,000 plus attorney fees. But I think we can do better than that." "How much better?" Bill grinned. "How does $500,000 sound?" The countersuit hit Derek and Tessa like a freight train. Within hours of the filing, my phone was ringing with calls from reporters. Apparently, the story of a blue-collar guy taking down a trust fund baby and his spoiled girlfriend was exactly the kind of David versus Goliath narrative the media loved. "Local business owner fights back against frivolous lawsuit," read the headline in the morning paper. The article included photos of Derek's expensive car and Tessa's designer clothes, contrasted with pictures of me working at the auto shop. Derek's family tried to make it go away quietly, but the damage was done. The gambling debts were public record now, and several of his father's clients were asking uncomfortable questions about the firm's ethics. Tessa called me directly, sobbing into the phone. "Ethan, please, I never wanted this to happen. Derek told me it would be easy money, that you'd just settle and we could all move on." "You should have thought about that before you sued me." "I'm going to lose everything. My parents are furious. They're talking about disowning me." "Good. Maybe they'll finally stop enabling your behavior." "Please, can't we work something out? I'll drop the lawsuit, I'll disappear, whatever you want." "It's too late for that. You wanted to play hardball, so that's what we're doing." I hung up and immediately called Bill to make sure he was recording all communications. If they were going to keep digging their hole deeper, I wanted documentation of every shovel full. The case never made it to trial. Derek's family lawyers approached Bill with a settlement offer that was more than we'd asked for, $600,000, plus a public apology and an agreement that neither Derek nor Tessa would ever contact me again. "They're scared," Bill explained. "If this goes to trial, it'll be front-page news for weeks. Derek's gambling problems, Tessa's financial dependence, the whole sordid mess. They'd rather pay you to go away than deal with that kind of publicity." I accepted the settlement, but not for the money. I wanted the public apology, a full-page ad in the local newspaper admitting that the lawsuit had been frivolous and that I'd acted within my legal rights in all matters. The ad ran on a Sunday, right next to the society pages where all of Derek and Tessa's friends would see it. It was a small thing, but sometimes small things matter most. 5 years passed. Sabrina and I had 2 kids now, a boy and a girl, and the auto shop had expanded into 3 locations. The settlement money had been invested wisely, giving us financial security I'd never imagined possible. I rarely thought about Tessa or Derek anymore. They'd become footnotes in my life story, cautionary tales I occasionally shared with friends over beers. But life has a way of bringing the past back when you least expect it. I was at my daughter's school play when I saw her, Vanessa Drake, sitting 3 rows ahead with a little boy who looked about 6 years old. She'd changed her hair and lost the power suit, but I recognized her immediately. During intermission, she turned around and spotted me. For a moment, we just looked at each other across the crowded auditorium. Then she smiled, a real smile this time, not the calculated one from the courtroom. "Ethan Mallory," she said, walking over. "I heard you'd done well for yourself. Vanessa, good to see you. This is my son, Michael." The little boy was hiding behind her legs, shy around strangers. "Michael, this is Mr. Mallory. He's a friend of Mommy's. Nice to meet you, Michael." Sabrina appeared at my elbow, carrying our baby daughter. "Honey, who's your friend?" "Sabrina, this is Vanessa Drake. She's an attorney who helped me out a few years ago." The 2 women shook hands, sizing each other up the way women do. Sabrina was warm and genuine. Vanessa was polished and guarded. But there was no hostility, just curiosity. "How's private practice treating you?" I asked. "I left Morrison Wells about 3 years ago. Started my own firm specializing in family law." She glanced at Michael. "Turns out helping people through divorces and custody battles is more rewarding than corporate litigation." "Good for you. What about Derek and Tessa? Do you ever hear from them?" I shook my head. Part of the settlement was that they'd leave me alone permanently. As far as I know, they've honored that. Derek moved to California after the scandal. His father basically exiled him to protect the family reputation. Tessa, she paused. "Actually, I shouldn't gossip. Come on, I'm curious." Vanessa glanced around to make sure no one was listening. She married a much older man, a widower with money who was looking for a young wife to take care of his kids. It's not a love match, but she's financially secure. Sounds like she found what she was really looking for. That's one way to put it. The lights dimmed, signaling the end of intermission. As we returned to our seats, Vanessa touched my arm. "I'm glad things worked out for you, Ethan. You deserved better than what they put you through. Thanks. And thank you again for doing the right thing back then. It couldn't have been easy." "It was easier than you think. Sometimes the right choice is also the smart choice." I watched her walk back to her seat, thinking about how much had changed since that first meeting in the conference room. She'd been Derek's weapon then, hired to destroy me in court. Instead, she'd become the instrument of his downfall. The second act of the play began, but I found myself thinking about dominoes again. How one small push could set off a chain reaction that changed everything. Tessa's betrayal had led to Derek's involvement, which had led to the lawsuit, which had led to Vanessa's revelation, which had led to their destruction and my vindication. Sometimes the dominoes fell exactly the way they were supposed to. 10 years after the engagement party that changed everything, I was exactly where I wanted to be. The auto shop had become a small empire, 6 locations across the state, employing over 40 people. Sabrina and I had been married for 8 years, with 3 kids who kept us busy and happy. I'd learned to let go of the anger and resentment that had driven me in those early days. Tessa and Derek were ancient history, their betrayals just stepping stones that had led me to a better life. But sometimes the universe has a sense of irony. I was having lunch at Murphy's Diner, the same booth where Jake had told me about Tessa's repossessed car all those years ago, when she walked in, older, more tired, but unmistakably Tessa Patterson, or whatever her last name was now. She didn't see me at first. She was focused on the little girl holding her hand, maybe 8 or 9 years old, with blonde pigtails and a serious expression. They sat at a table near the window, and I could hear fragments of their conversation. "Can we get dessert, Mommy?" "We'll see, sweetheart. Let's look at the prices first." It was such a normal maternal interaction that it caught me off guard. This wasn't the spoiled princess who'd humiliated me at her parents' house. This was just a tired mother trying to manage her budget and make her daughter happy. I should have left, should have paid my check and walked out without saying anything. But curiosity got the better of me. "Tessa?" She looked up, and I saw the exact moment she recognized me. Her face went white, then red, then settled into something like resignation. "Hello, Ethan. Mind if I sit down?" She glanced at her daughter, then nodded. "Emma, this is Mr. Mallory. He's an old friend of Mommy's." "Hi," Emma said shyly. "Hi there. How old are you, Emma?" 9. Well, 9.5. 9.5 is very important, I said seriously. I have a daughter who's 7 3/4, and she makes sure everyone knows about those 3/4. Emma giggled, and some of the tension left Tessa's shoulders. "How are you?" she asked quietly. "Good. Really good. Married, 3 kids, business is thriving." I paused. "How about you?" She looked at Emma, who was coloring on her placemat. "I'm okay. Different than I used to be, but okay." "I heard you got married." "Divorced now. 2 years ago." She kept her voice low. "Richard was a good man, but I wasn't a very good wife. I was still learning how to be a decent person." "Learning?" She met my eyes for the first time. "What I did to you, at the engagement party, the lawsuit, all of it, it was horrible. I was horrible. I've spent a lot of years trying to figure out how to be better." "Looks like you're doing all right," I said, nodding toward Emma. "She's the best thing I ever did, the only thing I'm proud of." Tessa's voice was soft. "I think about that night sometimes, about how cruel I was, about how you handled it. It was a long time ago. Not for me. I think about it a lot, actually, about how you didn't yell or make a scene. You just took action, consequences like you said. The waitress came over to take their order. Tessa ordered a grilled cheese and fries for Emma, just a cup of soup for herself. When the waitress asked about drinks, Tessa hesitated. "Can we have 2 waters, please? And maybe some crackers?" I recognized the signs, Someone stretching a tight budget, making every dollar count. When the waitress left, I caught her attention. Actually, could you add a chocolate milkshake to that order and put it all on my check? Ethan, you don't have to. I want to. Emma's eyes lit up at the mention of a milkshake, and Tessa's protest died on her lips. Thank you, she said quietly. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Emma color and chatter about school. It was strange, seeing Tessa as a mother. She was patient and attentive, nothing like the selfish woman I'd known. Can I ask you something? She said eventually. Sure. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I'd been different that night? I considered the question seriously. Honestly, I think we would have gotten married, been miserable for a few years, and divorced anyway. You weren't ready to be a partner back then. You needed someone to take care of you, not someone to build a life with. You're probably right. She stirred her soup absently. I wasn't ready for anything real. I thought love was about finding someone who could give me the life I wanted, not about creating something together. And now? Now I know better. Too late for us, obviously, but I know better. Emma finished her milkshake and announced she needed to use the bathroom. While she was gone, Tessa turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before, genuine remorse. I owe you an apology, a real one, not the court-ordered nonsense from the settlement. I was cruel and selfish and stupid, and you didn't deserve any of it. Apology accepted. Just like that? Just like that. We were different people then. You've clearly grown up and I've moved on. No point in carrying old grudges. When Emma returned, I stood to leave. It was good seeing you, Tessa. Take care of yourself. Ethan? She stood too. I'm glad you found happiness. You always deserved better than what I could give you. I nodded and walked to the counter to pay both checks. As I was leaving, I heard Emma ask, Mommy, was Mr. Mallory your boyfriend? A long time ago, sweetheart, before you were born. He seems nice. Yes, Tessa said softly. He is. Epilogue. The last domino. Driving home from the diner, I thought about the strange circle my life had taken, from that humiliating night at the engagement party to this quiet reconciliation over grilled cheese and milkshakes. Tessa had been right about one thing. I deserved better than what she could give me back then. But in trying to destroy me, she'd actually set me free to find what I really needed. The dominoes had fallen exactly as they should have. I pulled into my driveway just as Sabrina was getting home from work. She kissed me hello and asked about my day. Interesting, I said. I ran into an old friend. Anyone I know? Tessa, my ex-fiancée. Sabrina raised an eyebrow. The engagement party disaster? That's the one. She's different now. A mother, divorced, seems to have learned from her mistakes. How do you feel about seeing her? I considered the question as we walked into the house together. Our kids came running to greet us. Lucy, our 7-year-old, demanding help with homework. Tommy, our 5-year-old, showing off a drawing he'd made at daycare. Baby Grace toddling over with her arms up, wanting to be held. This was my life now. This chaos and love and genuine partnership with someone who'd chosen me not for what I could provide, but for who I was. I feel grateful, I told Sabrina. If she hadn't broken up with me that night, I never would have met you. Sabrina smiled and kissed me again. Well then, I should probably send her a thank you card. Later that evening, after the kids were in bed, I sat in my home office looking at photos from our life together. Wedding pictures, vacation shots, birthday parties, ordinary moments that had become extraordinary because they were shared with the right person. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a split second, I tensed, remembering all those desperate messages from Tessa years ago. But this one was different. Thank you for lunch today, and for showing Emma what kindness looks like. You're a good man, Ethan. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. T. I typed back a simple response. Take care of yourself and that beautiful daughter. You're both going to be fine. Then I deleted the number and put the phone away. Some chapters in life needed to stay closed, even when they ended on a positive note. I walked upstairs to check on the kids before bed. Lucy was fast asleep with a book still open beside her. Tommy had kicked off his covers and was sprawled across the bed like a starfish. Grace was curled up with her favorite stuffed elephant, Thumb in her mouth. These were my dominoes now, not the destructive kind that toppled everything in their path, but the building blocks of a life worth living. Each day adding another piece to something stable and beautiful and lasting. Sabrina was already in bed when I joined her, reading a novel with her glasses perched on her nose. She looked up and smiled. Good day? She asked. Very good day, I said, settling in beside her. But I'm glad to be home. She marked her place in the book and turned off the light. In the darkness, I could hear the house settling around us, the soft sounds of a family at peace. I'd learned something important from those early disasters with Tessa and Derek. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing, because it forces you to become who you're really meant to be. The humiliation, the betrayal, the legal battles, they'd all been necessary steps on the path to this moment. The last domino had finally fallen, and it had landed exactly where it belonged,